So, Conor, before we go to the Thursday night game, one of the impressive performances on Monday Night Football was your rookie running back, Jameer Gibbs. It was kind of his coming out party. I think he had 189 all-purpose yards and a touchdown, which is some going for the 12th overall pick in the NFL draft. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, it was. He finally broke out. I know there's been a lot of criticism, especially from fantasy people, crying about him not getting enough touches. And yeah, this game he showed what he can do. And I think the run game as a whole was a big improvement. The Lions' run game has struggled. David Montgomery's been amazing, but outside of that, it has struggled. And yeah, I think we're averaging 5 yards a carry all round. Even Craig Reynolds, who's our RB3, was running the ball well. But Gibbs, he showed it you really. He's a guy with elite speed, and I love his fight as well. He just breaks so many tackles for a small guy. I mean, on one big run, I remember he just he broke 3 tackles and he's just throwing people off him. He's a real exciting guy, and I think, like I say, he helps in the passing game as well. So it's definitely an exciting weapon.
Yeah, I loved him coming through in Alabama. He reminds me so much of Alvin Kamara, who's been one of the best running backs, and you know, running back receiving kind of weapons for the Saints over the past 5 or 6 years. Um, you were going to ask me a question about Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, of course. Like I say, you leaned heavily in Ron Rivera, obviously being Sellers. You think he's a guy that he's not going to last very long, maybe at all with the Commanders at the end of the season. Do you think you have a head coach already in the building, or like I say, would you like to maybe at the end of the season review things, go through another sort of process where you see who's out there?
I'd like them to give the job to Bieniemy. Um, I think he's turned around the offense in a major way, and he's been huge in terms of building Sam Howell into the quarterback that he looks like he's going to become. And one thing about Eric Bieniemy is I just kind of like the cut of his jib. He seems to hold a very, very high standard in training every single day. And if a player is in training, he's onto them. He's not letting the standard drop. And that was one of the big things through pre-season that all the players kind of mentioned, or people following the team kind of mentioned, that he was holding a really high line in terms of what was acceptable and what was not acceptable. And I think that's really the kind of person you want at the top of an organisation. He seems to be respected by the players that he used to train in Kansas City as well. So I'd like to see him given a shot, especially from now till the end of the season, and then review things, because the new owners are going to have their own thoughts and ideas. But I'd certainly like to see him get a shot. And
Obviously there was a lot of, he's been a head coaching candidate for many years now, so I think say a half season in the role would be good for him, and a little experiment to see if he can get started, because he's been declined a lot of the time. So he got in charge of his own offense really to the start of the season here, hasn't he? And I think to end it in a head coaching role could definitely be good for him.
Yeah, if he had a better offensive line, I think we'd be, we probably wouldn't have been trading away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. But let's move on to Thursday Night Football. So we have the Tennessee Titans against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And last weekend, we had the first start of rookie quarterback Will Levis in Tennessee. He threw for 4 touchdowns, including 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. Is this the new chapter for the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I mean, they finally started to turn things around, especially on offense. I know they've really been struggling to score points with Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis coming in for one game in London. But yeah, Levis he got the offensive moving, and even the run game got going. I know Derek Henry hit 100 yards, so it was a good day for Tennessee. It was promising. Hopkins come to light as well, and maybe that's the new connection that they needed, a bit of Levis and Hopkins.
Yeah, it was interesting when Malik Willis came in. His first snap kind of went over his head, and it resulted in a turnover. And then he'd one run for about 6 yards, and the Tennessee fans were starting to boo him. And that's when Mike Vrabel made the decision to throw Levis in. They're starting to call him Billy Jeans down in Tennessee, which I think is a pretty cool nickname. I really hope it catches on because of how his name is kind of spelled like Levi's. So Billy Jeans. He had a 130.5 quarterback rating, and he was actually hit quite a lot. I think he was hit maybe 11 times during the game, and still he stood in the pocket, and he's got a huge arm talent. I mean, his fourth touchdown to Westbrook Akine. He was going backwards, so he's at the 45-yard line walking backwards, and he drops a dime into the end zone. I mean, there's very few quarterbacks in the league that have that kind of arm talent. What do you think is going to be the challenges for Will Levis? Will Levis going into Pittsburgh, where the Steelers have arguably one of the best defense. Well, they have one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, it's gonna be tougher. I mean, Atlanta, they're no pushover defense. They're still quite a strong defense, and he put a good show in there in his debut. But at Pittsburgh, it is going to be a bit of a different story in a different environment in a prime time game. I think I worry about the Tennessee offensive line a lot. Like I say, he got hit a lot, and I know that offensive line has really struggled and been one of the worst units in the league. So it sort of depends on that run game. Like I say, I know Derrick Henry ran the ball very well, and that's going to help a quarterback. So if he gets put in a position where the run game isn't working and he's getting put in second and third and longs, how's he going to deal with those kind of situations? And I think we could see that in this game.
I thought it was a very significant win against the Falcons, because if they had lost that, they would have gone to 2-5, and their season would basically have been over. And there was lots of rumours last week of Derrick Henry being on the trading block, DeAndre Hopkins being on the trading block, and I think one of the reasons why they probably decided to keep both of those players is for the development of Will Levis. Like, he'll be able to give Henry the ball to pick up yardage. He has built up a relationship with DeAndre Hopkins in one game that could help further his development. And I think the Titans are going to go all in on Will Levis in terms of trying to develop him as a quarterback from now till the end of the season, which is exciting when you see somebody with just that excitement. I mean, Tennessee have really been one of the most boring teams to watch for the last 2 or 3 years, outside of Derrick Henry, who for me is one of the best running backs of all time. I mean, if he was at a team that was more successful and probably in a bigger market, he'd be considered as such. But they're just a really boring team. They always kind of seem to hang in there till the fourth quarter in really low scoring games. And I think Will Levis's match, for his debut match, he threw for 4 touchdowns, and it's the first time the Tennessee Titans have scored 4 touchdowns since 2021. Isn't that just unbelievable? That's how poor their offense is. What do you make of the Tennessee defense, or is there anything you want to add in terms of how the Titans approached the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a few names on defense that I do quite like. I'm a big fan of Jeremy Simmons and Harold Landry on that D line. Obviously, they just traded away one of their big safeties, Kevin Byard, to the Eagles. So they feel like they maybe lose it there. And like I said, I think they have always been a bit of a boring team, because they have been that old-fashioned run the ball with a strong defense. And I think their defense has got a bit weaker over the last couple of years, so they needed to change something on offense, and Levis helps with that. So it's about complementing in one another, and I think having a passing quarterback like Levis that's going to look to go deeper more often and attack in that kind of way, it also helps the defense out.
What did you make of that Kevin Byard trade? Because he's one of the best safeties in the NFL, and the last time Tennessee Titans general manager made a deal with Howie Roseman, he got the sack off the back of the deal. Who did you hand the W to in that trade?
Yeah, I think you'd have to give it to the Eagles, really. Obviously, Howie Roseman he pulls out these trades out of nowhere, sort of unbelievable. You think, how have you gotten him for this kind of value? So it's another trade to an Eagles defense that, like I said, I think we've said they don't look as good as last year, and then they go and get a big contributor like that on defense. So it helps them massively as they try and maybe get back to a Super Bowl. And for Tennessee, it's a bit of a confusing one, but again, like I say, they ain't the contender like they quite have been the last couple of years. So I think I can understand maybe getting rid of a player, but for the kind of value that they did, it is shocking.
Yeah, I think it was a 5th and 6th round pick. Very, very, very little for an all-pro player. Let's look at the Steelers, and one of the big problems for the Steelers all season has been their run game. I've 3 stats that are pretty eye-catching. I was putting ahead in the books this week, but the Steelers are averaging 3.4 yards a carry, which is the 29th in the NFL. They have less than 80 yards in the rushing attack per game on average. And on 28% of their runs, which is like almost 1 in 3, they haven't reached the line of scrimmage with their run game. They've either stopped at the 0-yard line or lost yards on their run game. What the hell is going on? Like, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the best run teams in the history of the NFL, and they just can't seem to move the ball. What do you make of it?
I think it's a bit of everything, really. Like I say, the offensive lines, it's not good at all, really. Especially they got a development tackle, Broderick Jones, rookie, who he is going to be a development tackle, so he is, despite being a first-round pick, and they suck sort of everywhere, to put it bluntly. Like I say, their receiving game's struggling because of the offensive line. Pickett is not playing with confidence, and he's looked sort of worse to his rookie season, which is kind of weird. And I know Matt Canada at OC, a lot of people want him out of a role there and aren't happy with them. So I think they got problems sort of at every levels. And until they really start attacking and fixing those issues, the offense has been really, really poor.
Okay, so we know Matt Canada is getting a lot of abuse from Steeler Nation. A lot of people want him out. They're putting a lot of pressure on Mike Tomlin to change offensive coordinators. But do you think the quarterback Kenny Pickett, do you think his time is running out, and do you think the Steelers should maybe throw in Mitch Trubisky?
I think it would be very harsh if they were to do that. Obviously, I know Pickett is an older quarterback when he was drafted, so you kind of expect him to not take too long to develop because he already is out of a respectable age. So at the end of the day, his performances haven't been good enough, and if they do keep going on like this, then it kind of feels like they might have to try something different. I personally would try something different, maybe with a play calling and even plays designs at the end of the day. But yeah, I think it would be a very tough call, but at the end of the day, something needs to change. And if that Mike Tomlin, he's a Hall of Fame coach, really, he's going to be, and if he feels that's the decision that's gonna need to be made, I think you got to respect that.
So away from the Russian attack, in terms of Kenny Pickett throwing the ball down the field, he's not getting much protection either. I think he's been put under pressure on 43% of his dropbacks, which is almost 1 in 2. What can the Steelers do in terms of just getting this offense moving? And do you think they'll actually be able to put a dent from the Titans front in this game?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's sort of hard to do mid-season because I think a lot of it does to do with talent, really. So it's something that, unless you obviously go out and do a load of the trades, which they can't do anymore, it's hard to fix. So I think at the end of the day, you just have to keep trusting this process. Like, there's 4-3. They got a winning record somehow. I think there's a stat going around where every single game they have been outgained by yards, yet they're still 4-3. And I think that could happen again this game. I think the Titans' offense certainly looks more promising than the Steelers, but they're finding ways to win. They're winning ugly, which isn't always perfect, but they got a strong defense, one of the better ones in the league, which is going to help. And I think until that defense can just keeping them in these games, the offense is getting by, and they get these big plays by George Pickens, and they've got Deontay Johnson now back as well at wide receiver, so that's going to help. But yeah, until that offensive line, especially in the interior, really gets fixed, and the run game really gets fixed as well, because now Najee Harris is just fallen off a cliff. It's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, I think if they can get the run game going, they could really maybe surprise teams, because, as you said, that defense is really outstanding. So prediction time. How do you think the Steelers and the Titans is going to play out on Thursday Night Football?
Like I said, I think it's going to be another game where the Steelers get outgained, but with them being at home and with that strong defense, I do think the Steelers actually find a way to eke out a win. I think it's going to be a game which the Titans, they're not going to have as much going for them with the Falcons, because like I said, I think that run game might get shut down a little bit and make things harder for Levis, but I still think he'll have a good game, a promising game for them. But the Steelers, I think their defense holds strong at the end, and they get a winning field goal or touchdown to win the game on the last drive.
Yeah, no, I'm going to roll against you this week. I'm going to go on the Billie Jean train, catch the Billie Jean train, and I think that the Titans are going to take this one. I think they're after getting some momentum mid-season with that introduction of Will Levis at quarterback. and I think they're really going to push the Steelers hard. I think the Steelers' offense is grinding to a halt almost at the moment. So I'm going to tip the Titans for this one. Okay, Conor, thanks very much for another week. Maybe next week we will run through some mid-season hot takes. But thanks very much for your analysis, and we'll see you again soon.
Pleasure as always. We'll see you next week.